welcome back to Taking the Scare Out of Your Square. I am Lars Mellis. I am the Outreach Director for NCGR LA and a practicing astrologer in West Hollywood, California. And I'm with my co-host, Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Lars.
Do you want to intro yourself and then intro our special guest?
Yes. My name is Rachel Lang, and I'm an astrologer and a psychic medium in Los Angeles. And I'm also the vice president of the local chapter of NCGR and the outreach director for the national organization. And today we have a very special guest.
Hey.
We're so excited. Adama, and Adama's from New York. Do you want to introduce yourself, Adama?
Go for it, Adama.
Yeah, I'm Adama. I'm from New York, and I'm an astrologer, and my practice is called Lilith Astrology.
Perfect. And how can people find you?
You can find me at lilithastrology.com or on Instagram at Lilith Astrology, YouTube, and Facebook. Same handle.
Awesome. And all of our information is going to flash onto the screen right now. Great. Let's dive on in. So we have Adama because what we're going to be covering today is an aspect that Adama has natally. So yeah, we are going to dive on into Sun Square Moon. So Adama, are you a first quarter or a third quarter baby?
I'm a third quarter baby.
Nice. Awesome. So what is your big three for those at home?
So I'm a Cancer rising, Scorpio sun, and a Leo moon.
Very nice. Love that. And so, of course, Sun Square Moon is a square, and we're going to be taking the scare out of the square.
Yes, it's not too scary, guys.
Yes, totally. A scare shouldn't be. Squares shouldn't be scary. Right, there you go. Yeah. Exactly. So Rachel, why do you think, and we talk about this every time, but in case this is the first video someone's watching, why do squares get such a bad rap?
They get a bad rap because when we're talking about squares, we're talking about two planets that are 90 degrees away from one another. And if you think about a 90-degree angle, when, in a building, a 90-degree angle creates structure, but you can't have that structure unless you have some element of tension. Mm-hmm. So a square represents those points of tension within ourselves that we experience on a very personal level.
100%. A square is very much directed inwards, whereas an opposition is projected outwards, given those are the two disharmonious aspects. And the other thing that I think is important to note is that unlike an opposition, with the square, you're not dealing with the same axis like an Aries Libra, right? So there's no shared theme. Mm-hmm. There's usually the same modality, but it's not with those polar signs.
Right. Yeah, and so what can happen is that I like to think of squares as like the arguing voice inside of your head, where it's like you have two competing interests and they play out in patterns in your relationships and like the kinds of things that are the repeating challenges that you move through, the repeating lessons that you move throughout your life.
100%. And Adama, when you are counseling clients that have heavy squares, what do you note about why you think they come across so scary to people?
I think, we say, that's a bad aspect or it's challenging. It's maybe the words that we use because you can't have something happen without a little fire or a little friction. And that's essentially what a square provides. Like, there's plenty of people who are successful, that have T-squares in their chart because for them to get to that place, something had to happen. It's kind of, we all go through that in life. So I just really counsel on understanding your moon, understanding your sun, and then okay, how can we integrate that? How can we integrate both energies and kind of come to get them to shake hands, which I personally have been doing for myself. Getting my Leo, my Scorpio to shake hands and okay, how can I marry these two energies that are just so different into one unique mix and make that work for my life? So that's really how I go about it.
100%. And both Rachel and I, while we don't have Sun Square Moon, we are heavy square people as well. And so totally agree. It is our Rocky montage, right? And it will help us to to really accomplish like what we came here to accomplish.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you find that people with like significant squares in their charts are actually really successful, or they can be really successful. Like Bill Gates, for example, has a number of squares because people with squares aren't afraid to push themselves.
Mhm.
They're always here not thinking that they're perfect. They're here refining aspects of themselves, becoming better, feeling that inner drive to create more balance in terms of their personality and how they express it.
Absolutely.
100%. I think like last point, if you had all trines and sextiles, you would have peaked in high school, and no one necessarily wants to peak in high school.
That is so good. That's so true. That's so true. I love it.
100%. Should we move on to discussing the luminaries individually?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, two of the three big three we're discussing, so very important. And we got the sun first. Rachel, do you want to start?
Sure. The sun is our primary essence. It's our I am essence. And it's how we shine our light in the world. Being the brightest luminary that we see in the heavens, it's kind of like the great big spotlight.
100%. Yeah, it's also very much tied to vitality. So, it's important to take a look at your sun and the aspects associated with it to better understand like your lifeblood.
So recognition, what we consider important, I think your life force, it's like you're radiating out and you're wanting people to accept that radiation. So it's our ego, and it's like, that's how we shine. So we want others to, and maybe it's my Leo moon talking as well. We want others to like accept that shine. So it's like how we can, not just what we need, but it's like what's actually fulfilling. Because I feel like sometimes what I struggle with is what I need is different from what I want. And my moon needs something different, but my sun wants to do something different. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, 100%. I totally agree with that. And you used the perfect word, I think, which is ego. And I think it's important to clarify it's the healthy ego. Because when we're talking about the unhealthy ego, that's typically more of a Mars-ruled theme. But you're so right about that. The sun definitely recognizes our healthy ego, how we shine, how we want to be recognized.
And I think the ego, too, is how we differentiate ourselves from others.
Mm-hmm.
It's the creative expression of ourselves as well. So often those creative pursuits, those are all related to our sun signs.
All three of us are very modern astrologers, so we do our best to put our best foot forward about not gendering, but it typically, the sun in a natal chart represents that paternal influence in your life, not necessarily the father, but definitely the paternal influence.
Yeah, it's how we're taught from an early age to express ourselves outwardly. So it's less of how we're nurtured or less of how we receive the world and our responses to it, and more of what we're here to do.
Totally. And like, any astrologer will tell you that when you look at someone's chart and you want to see where they came from, you look for their moon. But when it comes to the sun, it's sort of like you can see what they're growing into, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. Anything to add, or should we jump into what I just said?
I think also one thing that I've experienced when you're transitioning into, like when you're growing into it, is one thing, because I feel like I'm doing that right now, is I'm integrating the moon into the sun too. I'm learning like, okay, this Leo stuff. Oh wait, okay, this can work with. I also have a 5th house sun, which probably also helps. But it's like, how can I integrate that in a scorpionic way?
Totally, very much tied into that
kind of
solar theme of growing into it.
Yeah, you like bring that moon energy and kind of plant it with the sun, if that makes sense.
100%. Yeah. Well, speaking of moon energy, should we talk about the moon?
Do.
Awesome. Well, I'm a big believer that the first keyword with the moon should always be our feels. It really is indicative of our emotions, where we came from, how we were nurtured, how we nurture others, how we react/respond, since those are two slightly different things. Our home, essentially.
Yeah. and rules Cancer. I'm a Cancer rising, so this is my favorite.
Totally, 100%. You made an interesting point to talk about that Taurus is exalted here. Why did you feel the need to include that?
I just feel that with needs, that's very tied to self-worth, because if you, and this is something that I've learned in my life, is sometimes you don't get what you truly need because your self-worth may be just not all there. So it's like, I feel like self-worth is just tied to the moon. And I think that's why Taurus does so well here, because your self-worth is tied to that maternal instinct and that comfort, all of that. And if you didn't have that, that can be, you know, something that you have to like work on in your life.
100%. And Rachel, could you take us to church or synagogue or non-denominational of prayer in regards to how the moon is related to our self-care?
Yes, definitely. Well, with the moon represents our emotional centers, but it's also our unconscious needs and where we go to for comfort. It's that point of, like, just piggybacking on what you were talking about with Taurus, you know, the moon is where we find emotional stability, where we crave security. And so our moon gives us a lot of insights into how we care for ourselves.
100%.
I also like to talk about the moon in terms of our unconscious manifestations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's what we draw into our lives, not with our conscious thoughts, not with our intentions, but with the needs that we have that are unexpressed, that lie in the unconscious realm. And so often when we're looking at, like, why am I always drawing this type of person into my life? Or why do I have this kind of experience showing up over and over again? It's often a manifestation of our moon.
I love that so much, and it's sat with me. You know, as a Sag moon, I find that the people that I attract into my life and sometimes create friction really beseech me to get in touch with what my truth is. And that's such a Sagittarian theme, and it only progresses me in that way. So I love that. How do you feel it relates to you, Adama, as a Leo moon?
Definitely. So it's interesting what you said before the call, because I found myself, like, if I'm creatively frustrated, like, I can't really express myself. And it's funny because I have a second house moon as well. So it's like that need is really tied to my self-worth. And so I can, like, just create a situation to try to get out of it or something. Like, I've done that so many times where I'm like, I don't like this. So how can I get out of this? Not in my passive Mars and Libra way. I'm just like, be like, all right, out of here. So I definitely think that, you know, that's just you're going to manifest what you truly need. For sure. Yeah.
And not always what you want. Manifesting what you want from a conscious level is your sun. Drawing experiences into your life that you don't know how they showed up is your moon.
Right. I love that. Speaking of which, should we go into the sun square moon then? I love that, since it really is that tug of war between wants and needs. Either of you, go for it. How would you start off the conversation?
Adama, this is yours. You have this.
It's like my life right now.
Yeah.
So definitely pre-Saturn return, because my Saturn return was like classic, rough, but I needed it. Looking back now, I'm 30, halfway to 33, but looking back now, I needed it. And I definitely stuck with my Leo moon so much before then. I work in a very aesthetic industry, and it got to the point where it's like my moon, it manifested, but it wasn't what I wanted. Even though I was like manifesting this career, it was like, but this isn't it. And I realized that, and all these things happened in Saturn return, but it really showed things in black and white more, like what was my need, and then what was I manifesting, but like, is that really what I want? So I definitely think that's in line also with your sun. As you get older, you become more like your sun. So that realization starts to happen when you're like, I'm seeing sun stuff. Okay. So how can I bring that in?
100%. And then Rachel, could you speak a bit about just like your lunar cycle in the natal chart, especially for those budding astrologers who are watching, and the importance of it and the difference between a first quarter and a last quarter in this situation?
Yeah, definitely. Well, every stage in lunation cycle, when you're looking at your natal chart, every stage in the lunation cycle has a different set of features, and those often play out in relationships. Because when we're looking at the sun and the moon, we're often looking at our primary caregivers and how they related to one another. And the messages that we received as children about how to be in the world and how to balance the yin and the yang aspects of ourselves. So if you have a square that's a first quarter moon, that's a point in the lunation cycle where we're starting to see the light and we're starting to get some illumination on what's really going on. And so I find that this square tends to present itself as curiosity, wanting to know more, wanting to get information. And there can also often be in relationships a real desire to have a family structure. It's kind of like that Cancer aspect, or it's like the fourth house aspect. And then the last quarter, the moon's already been full. We've already seen everything that we need to see in that lunation cycle. So things have surfaced. And that second quarter often comes with a sense of responsibility to tell the truth, to express yourself. And this can be a sign of independence in relationship, where you might have had an experience of your parental or your early caregivers maybe not seeing eye to eye, maybe being at odds with one another, but you got contrasting messages that then colored how you show up in relationships, to where you were raised or you learned early on self-reliance, independence, those kinds of things.
Oh, girl, you're literally reading my birth chart right now. Literally. Wow. Yes, that's hit the nail on the head.
So, Adama, as a last quarter sun square moon, that obviously resonates with you, right? Do you want to speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's just I feel like one of the main things in my life is learning to speak my truth. Like, it's just, that's, especially being a Cancer rising, and I have a Mars in Libra and a Mercury in Scorpio on top of it. So it's like, I've always navigated things too much and didn't rely on here and trust myself. So yes.
Totally. And then just to like conclude this point, just to do basic math for people, if they're like, I know I'm a sun square moon, but I don't know which one I am, right? So if you're a first quarter, it means we're going to speak just in the same modality. There is the likelihood that there's possibly a different modality, right? Mm-hmm. But it would be whatever fixed sign comes after your sun sign fixed sign. So if you are a Scorpio sun, then it would be an Aquarius moon. I'm just going to use Adama as an example. And then last quarter would be whatever fixed sign comes right before, or whatever the modality is before. So Adama is a last quarter sun square moon because her sun is in Scorpio and her moon is in Leo, which is the fixed sign before. Just basic math for the people.
Thanks. That was good clarifying it. Yeah.
Totally. So I love this bullet point, which Rachel, you said before. I'm all about the gift of gab. So bridging the head and the heart. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, the moon being our emotions is like this. The emotions are all anchored in our bodies, in our hearts, and so often what happens, and then our wants and our will is often anchored in the head. Mm-hmm. And so there can be a real tension between wants and needs, between like there can even be like a suppression of wants or a suppression of emotions to privilege the ego drive of what you think you should be doing. And so, for this, I think integrating is key. And also the more you can bring out your moon through learning how to access your intuition, really prioritizing self-care, developing your psychic skills, having heart-centered connections, anything you can do to really to bring the heart into focus and to be more heart-centered can help to integrate both of those things.
100%. And I
Yeah.
think what we love to do with concluding with this is really just talking about like flipping the square on its head and really talking about like the most positive aspects of this. And you speak to that very much so. In addition, we put hardworking there. Why do you think hardworking really applies in this situation?
Well, I think with any square, there's a sense of again, reaching some level of perfection, having the internal conflict that you're here to mediate within yourself, and striving for something better. But Adama, how does that play out for you, and how do you experience that aspect of the square?
All the time. I'm like, so I've lightened up since my Saturn return, but I used to be just extremely hard on myself, and definitely relationship insecurities for sure. And I think like spending some time being alone is the best thing I've ever done, because it, especially now too with quarantine, it's allowed me to really develop like my psychic skills, move inward, like notice things, because it's just like we're not running around and as busy. I'm just noticing certain things. I'm like, is that serving me? Is that working? And like I can mediate a lot. I've been able to mediate this a lot more during this time. Yeah.
Totally. You know, when I think about squares and like the ultimate outcome of it, it's really about, you know, like Rachel was discussing, like bridging those two luminaries, right, and what they represent. And you're literally bridging the sun and the moon within yourself and creating this integration between them. So the potential of you to be fulfilled as a result of that and live a fulfilling life, if you're able to, like, you know, create a union between your wants and your needs, you figure out who you are. And I feel like it's a lifelong quest for everyone, maybe. I don't
Absolutely.
you know, at least definitely for me. I don't know.
Yeah, it has been for me too.
Awesome.
Great.
So anything else to add?
I think just that last bullet point, repeating patterns of childhood, because of what we were talking about with sometimes the parental figures, even if they're not at odds with one another, there can be a tendency to bring those into your current relationships.
Yeah.
And so that's something like if you find yourself, you have this in your natal chart and you find yourself doing this, one of the best things to do is to familiarize yourself with Imago, which is a whole relationship model, like it's a whole therapeutic model that explores relationships and how we use projection and transference in our relationships, and basically how we recreate our childhood experiences. But if you can gain some awareness about how you do this and why you attract certain people into your life who play out as as one of your caregivers, it can help you to not be afraid of relationships, to have more intimacy, and to overcome any relationship challenges. And a great author I love for this is David Richo. His last name is Richo. So I just wanted to throw that in.
So great. How do you spell Imago?
I know. I'm going to check that out.
It's Imago.
Cool. Okay, well, we can include resources below.
Yeah.
That's I think such a great thing to end on for people who want to know how to really tackle the square if they have it in their natal chart. Yeah, totally.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adama, for joining us. We'd love to have you back anytime.
Yeah, thank you. This is fun.
Bye.
Bye.